So you have officially joined the second season of Love Life. How do you feel like this season differs from the first one?
First of all, it's very black. There are a lot of cacao people in this season, like a lot, and it centers around Marcus Watkins, played by William Jackson Harper, who is a black male. And I think just in general, that completely shifts the perspective. A lot of times, like I love the first season, and that was a big reason why I wanted to do the second season. But it's really cool that we did this perspective shift because it just I'm really happy that it allowed the show to change shape and perspective in that way. Like, because I guess in another version of this, he could have been black, but then it didn't really shift anything. Like what we had the same narrator, we talk about the same things. We only lightly touch on race. Like we could have done it this different way, but it was really cool that we just sort of went for it. And I think we do have appearances from some characters for the first season, but it's just an entirely new story that exists in the same universe.
And now, with you guys capturing kind of the nuances of dating while Black, being single while Black, and loving people while Black, what was that like for you getting that kind of imagery shown on camera?
Oh, it was really to get that kind of imagery on camera was really gratifying. That's the kind of stuff I want to do. I really want the representation of seeing more people of color on screen, more women on screen, more queer people on screen. Like that just needs to happen. And so I kind of jumped at the opportunity to be able to do this.
And getting into your role of Mia, how does Mia differ from characters you've portrayed in the past?
Mia is different from characters I've portrayed in the past because a lot of my past projects, you kind of, it was from my character's perspective. And I think Mia throughout this season is shown through Marcus's lens, except for episode 207, in which you kind of get a different version of Mia where you learn a little bit more about her background. And I think, that's kind of a big shift for me at least, of not sort of overly explaining anything. And I also think Mia, I can be kind of a hard on my sleeve person. I think she just plays it close to the chest and she has her reasons. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way we're different.
And with us seeing Mia through the lens of someone else, how would you describe her essence?
I would describe her essence as um, keeps it real, uh, funny, guarded, but sharp. Like kind of, I think she's a bit astute and kind of can see people for who they are pretty quickly.
And the show really captures kind of the transitional periods of dating. How would you describe that challenge that we get to see these characters experiencing?
I think it does bring a challenge. Well, first of all, hair, just because we were like bouncing around with all these different, like trying to go on a hair journey over 8 to 10 years over a summer is actually pretty tough, especially with reshoots. You're just like, I'm like, oh, damn, I just got to get my hair braided for 8 hours again. Okay. For like a day of work. So that's just one, just technically where you're just like, okay, reshoots. But I also think showing people's journey over 8 to 10 years, you just got to kind of trust that the audience is along for the ride and they're willing to see people make mistakes because we're not showing perfect people in the show. We're showing people grow and change. And so I think it's about, kind of recognizing what you've been through and how you have made mistakes and that you do hopefully come out, 10 years later, having learned from them. You have to kind of like burn your hand a little bit on the stove. And so it's cool that we get to go on that journey with the audience without overly explaining why that's happening. We're just sort of allowing it to happen and allowing the audience to view it.
And now I have to ask, with having the 8 to 10 year changes and the hair changes, and with hair being so important to Black people and Black culture, what was it like being able to showcase that?
It was really exciting. I am always looking to show, just again, more representation of people on screen. I want to play just complicated and dynamic and I want to play like characters and people with autonomy. So it was exciting. I felt like when I met with Rochelle Williams and Sam Boyd, who are two of the three co-runners along with Bridget Bedard. I met with them in the beginning before I got the role to kind of talk about Mia, and they had been working on it for about a year. And they had sort of these huge bullet points of her and what kind of shaped her. But then for the rest of it, they just kind of handed it to me and were like, how do you want to fill this in? And to have sort of the agency to make those choices about her and to go back and forth in dialogue. And like a couple of times I call Rochelle and kind of talk Mia out with her was really rewarding and gratifying. And I think also helped make me a better actor.
And now, with you being able to have agency over this character, what was your process for kind of building those layers?
My process for building those layers was really just sort of looking at her choices and really trying to zoom in on each individual scene and just break it up piece by piece and be like, what is this scene about with Marcus? What is this scene about with, her parents, played by Kimberly Elise and Blair Underwood? Like, what is this scene about? And what does she want? And just really, my biggest thing for this was trying to stay in the moment and just trying to kind of respond naturally and try and be my biggest thing for this. I was like, okay, I'm going to try and be as present as possible. And then I hope that it shows on screen. And I hope that this turns out like, okay. Because then I just didn't think big picture. Then I was just really just working on what I could do in that second.
And what was it like being able to have two, icons at this point play your parents?
It was insane. It was just insane. And I didn't know they were going to be my parents until maybe like a few weeks before we started shooting that episode. I was honored. I was shocked. It was so surreal to be like, at one point I was sitting with Blair Underwood at 7 a.m. at a Red Lobster to shoot a scene. And I was intimidated at first, but we did our first couple of rehearsals with Stacey Muhammad, which is our incredible director of that episode. And I was just working with an amazing actor. And same with Kimberly, where literally like there are so many good actors, but when someone's been doing it for a while and been doing it really well, it just feels completely different. So with Kimberly and Blair, it was working with two actors that were just like in their own power and kind of had been around so long that they knew what their own power was. And that was really inspiring. I think sometimes I get this too, where it's like as a newer actor, it's just something's just a little bit shaky, like in the spirit a little bit and nervous. But with them, I just felt like even if they were nervous, that I was in this grounded space. That's the best way I could describe it. Like it was just amazing. It was amazing.
And with this really giving you an opportunity to learn from other thespians, how have you evolved as an actor with this role?
With this role, I learned so much. I loved working with William Jackson Harper. Did I say William? Oh my goodness, that was the coffee. I loved working with William Jackson Harper. And I loved working with him. I had so many scenes with him. I felt like just having this, I don't know if I've ever played tennis, but it just felt like having a really good tennis match. And I just learned that the most important thing is to be present in every scene. That's like the most important thing. And it's like a muscle to try and be present, to try and forget that there's like 20 people here, to try and forget for a second that there's a pandemic, and not just even be afraid of breathing air while acting, because then that's another added layer. It's like, wow, I hope I don't get like sick, and just trying to just push everything that's going on like away and just focus on the scene. That to me is like what I learned this summer shooting this, is the importance of that. And I'm just always trying to get better at that muscle, because it can be pretty difficult when there's so much going on.
And my final question for you is, if you can choose one word to capture this season, what would it be and why?
What if I just said boogers? Like just boogers. One word, heart. Heart. I just think it was like, there's just a lot of heart in it. Not boogers, but heart. If you could choose one word, boogers. Yeah, heart, for sure. No, honestly, it's just heart. All jokes aside, heart.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.